What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 117 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we got a big one for you guys tonight as we cover the Holy Bull Stakes Day card and their Late Pick5 on the road to the Kentucky Derby over at Gulfstream Park. Thank you guys all for joining in so much. Greatly appreciate everyone. If you guys are new to this stream, or if you're watching as a replay and you're new, please go down below the video player and hit the subscribe button. We'd really love to have you as part of the HHH Racing Podcast community, and it's ever growing. Like I said, it's ever growing family. So please, if you're new here and enjoy the content, please go down below the video player, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you guys are enjoying the content, because not only does it show us you guys are enjoying it, but also it sends this video out into the YouTube algorithm to hopefully bring like-minded horse players like yourself to the HHH Racing Podcast. And of course, for that, we thank you. As you see scrolling, it just scrolled by on the bottom side of the screen. You see our normal podcast schedule, Mondays at 7:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's our Horsin Around recap show. It's on and off Mondays. So subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified of every single podcast that's posted here to the HHH Racing Podcast YouTube channel. Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, of course, is with Pacific Horseplayers with Noah Maher and Ryan Anderson. So please go subscribe for that on Tuesday nights. Wednesday, of course, right here with Bettin N Boozin at 8 p.m. Eastern, and of course tomorrow, Thursday with Picks and Ponies at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Howard, Pete, and Paul. Of course, every single episode that's posted here at the HHH Racing Podcast YouTube channel is also available in audio form over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Whether you're on your way to school, in the gym, wherever you want to listen to us, but you'd rather listen to audio form, we got you covered over on those three platforms. So please go rate, review, and subscribe over there as well, guys. Next week, we have a huge show coming up. It's our Super Bowl edition. We will still talk horses, of course, for the first half of the show, but the second half of the show will be who is going to win the big game, and of course covering our best bets and the ways we're going to play the big game. And again, we're 5 years straight running with the greatest bet in the Super Bowl, the coin toss, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll give you my coin toss pick as well as how we're going to play the big game. So please tune in next Wednesday for that. Of course, TikTok and Instagram at Bettin N Boozin Podcast, posting over there. So please go follow us over there for more short form content. The Power Picks guys still going super, super strong, still having a fantastic 2025, still above that $3.50 ROI mark for 2025, all time $2.15 with 762 total picks since February of 2021. If you guys are not subscribed, especially starting off here in 2025, you guys are missing out as we stay on the road to the Kentucky Derby in 2025. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Link is also in the description. If you want to see previous editions of those power picks before you buy them, or just want to learn more about us, please go to hhhracingpodcast.com. Guys, we'll get right into it for you guys. We will not waste anyone's time tonight. We'll go pretty quick as I have one guy with me, and hopefully Mr. South Beach himself will join us a little bit late. But the man who will be joining me tonight is, of course, from Pacific Horseplayers, but of course was a longtime co-host here on Bettin N Boozin, Noah Maher. Noah, what's going on, my friend?
Not too much. Doing well. If you guys watched PHP last week, obviously I wasn't, or not last week, yesterday. Obviously wasn't on yesterday because I was down in Knoxville watching the Wildcats take the W in Knoxville against the Tennessee Volunteers. So got to go to that game. That was pretty cool, but glad I can make one of these shows. And this is a hell of a card that we're going to be talking about, Kyle.
Yeah, it is a hell of a card. Obviously, like I've continued to say, it's the road to the Kentucky Derby. It's the first race of three on the Derby point leaderboard for Gulfstream Park. Of course, the Holy Bull, then followed up by the Fountain of Youth Stakes, and capped off with the Grade 1 Florida Derby. But yeah, no, Kentucky, that was obviously congratulations to you. I give enough congratulations around here. My teams never win, but I'm glad everyone else's do. So that's a fantastic way to start off the show, of course. And we got big things coming up this weekend, not only for this Gulfstream Park car we're going to talk about. Ed Burke mentioned it. Come on, Uncle Jim, for those that don't know. the Aqueduct card, which will be talked about tomorrow on Picks and Ponies at 7:30 p.m. Eastern here on the HHH Racing Podcast channel. Uncle Jim, which is the podcast's future bet this year. Of course, last year, the heartbreak of Sierra Leone happened, and who ends up winning freaking 3-year-old of the year and doesn't win the Derby, of course, naturally for us. But Uncle Jim is the pick, so he's running in the Withers. I believe he's 3-1 morning line, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be fantastic, Ed. Let's go, Uncle Jim. Also, Crownsway, friends of the podcast, and of course, I am a partner with their horses. That we are running 4 horses this weekend, 2 on Friday and 2 on Saturday. Miucci's Revenge and Purse Thief. Miucci's Revenge actually runs on Friday's Gulfstream Park card. Purse Thief runs at Turfway. Miucci's Revenge, both in race 4, actually. So Miucci's Revenge at Gulfstream Park, race 4. Purse Thief at Turfway in race 4 on 131. And on Saturday, 2-1, Managing Mischief, the new acquiree for Crownsway, runs at Oaklawn in race 7. And Shards comes back at Turfway Park on Saturday night, running in the 4 Ghost Stakes for $125,000. That's race number 7. So hopefully you guys will be along to cheer us on. Obviously, hoping Shards gets another victory to add to his stakes repertoire, and maybe we can target something down the line. So hopefully, good luck to all the partners that watch this show. I know Terry Frank, who's in the chat right now, is one of them. So good luck to us. Terry Frank, as I mentioned, is in the chat. Katie, of course, is here. Nick Feldman, long time no see, my friend. Been a minute since I've been able to watch. Can't wait. Thanks a lot, Nick, for joining the show. And of course, Sherry, my mom, is in the chat. Thanks so much.
This is Roscoe.
Greatly appreciate the support, guys. Like I said, we're not going to waste anyone's time tonight. We're going to get right into it. Maybe Chuckles will join us halfway through. Maybe he won't. Man's too big. Yeah, basketball is more important, apparently. I don't know. I don't make the rules, but either way, well, technically I do, and probably should enforce the rules at this point. The first race, Noah, this one's a doozy, going 1 3/8 miles on the Gulfstream Park turf course. The rails are a little bit out at 17 feet, so not as quick turns, but still shouldn't be too much of a difference from the rails being down. Again, full field of 12 with also 1 also eligible. Mutawi did not get in as I stream the Equibase right now, guys. You guys all know the drill by now. We've covered Gulfstream Park enough on Wednesdays. No morning lines, and unfortunately no numbers in the program either. So Noah, as you know, please try and say the numbers along with the horse names so people can follow along with us. Morning line favorite is going to be one of 3 horses, I would assume. Either the number 1 Rambling Wreck for Miguel Vasquez and Danny Gargan. The most likely choice is Lanthris for Tyler Gaffleone and Bill Mott, the number 2. And number 12 to the outside, Kid Cairo for Dylan Davis, who's still riding absolutely fantastically down there. Rode back-to-back Staffy Joseph winners today, if I'm not mistaken. And Mark Cassie is the trainer of Kid Cairo. Going to put our picks up on the screen right now. And all of our picks are on the screen. Unfortunately, 2 of them are not here with us today. Wow. Oh, no, that's the next race. Sorry. Well, you got a little sneak peek there, but still, we are all going with the French bred, the number 2 Lanthris for Gaffleone and Bill Mott. Noah, you and I have this horse on top. I'm hoping that we get a decent price on this horse. Might not be the case. However, I really like this horse coming into this race on Saturday.
Yeah, he looks to be the most likely winner. And if he wasn't the favorite, I'd probably be pretty shocked. But deservedly so. He's got before his last race, he had 2 nice seconds. One to Better Bet, and I was actually there down at Saratoga. I had the pleasure of doing that, seeing Matt Miller do his dancing and all that good stuff, because he had a nice cash there. But the last race was against quite a few rivals that are coming back in this race on Saturday. 3-1 that day, was actually the favorite. He was, I'm
going to show this replay, by the way.
Yeah, he had a pretty good trip around until they kind of hit the far turn. He's the 5 in the green and the red cap. You can see he's getting a pretty good trip down on the inside, and I believe the 4 Kid Cairo is the 12 in this race on Saturday. Yep. But he's just crying out for room, and I believe Junior was on the day, just could not find any. So I don't know if he was going to actually win that race, but he could definitely make it close. And like I said, he's probably going to be a short price, but you have to imagine that horses or handicappers will see that, and I would assume he's probably going to take some action on the board.
Yeah, I would agree. This, honestly, guys, it's not much after. He has run at 1 3/8 miles twice, at least in the States. Seems to me to be his better distance rather than the 1.5 miles. You saw, even though he got completely shut off at the 8th pole, like Noah said, he might not have been going by, but around the turn, he was picking up some steam. So hoping that the 1 3/8 might just be a better distance for him. But staying at the same level, I like this type of move. Gaffleone hops back aboard, who already rode him actually at that Saratoga one that you raced that you mentioned. I understand he's not necessarily a win type horse, but that last race where he had some trouble, and the first two 88s definitely fit on the win end. So first race, the irresponsible wager of the week bell is being rung. First race, if he's anything over like 2-1, 5-2, I would easily be placing a pretty sizable wager on this horse to win, hoping that he has a little better trip down the stretch than he had last time. But again, as Noah said, most likely winner. Again, just hoping for any type of decent price, and we'll see what we can kind of expect when the morning lines come out. Noah, you have a horse that none of us have anywhere, actually. It's number 6, I believe, Tennessee Lamb, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Really good last two on dirt, especially that last one. But now obviously facing winners for the first time and going back to the turf, which I thought was an interesting move.
Yeah, and if you look at his turf efforts more carefully, I don't think they're really that bad. He at that point in his career, he was more of a closer, and you can see in his last 3, George Arnold has kind of transitioned him to be a little more of a speed type. But in those 3, he really got, or in those 2 races, sorry, he really got no pace in either of them. Lost to Hershey, who is a really nice horse for Helen Pitts and was a big price that day on his debut. And then Aksar Ben Derby, I believe Kyle was the winner of the was it the Hawthorne Derby, I believe?
The Hawthorne Derby, let's see. I think you might be right. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I know they have a really nice turf race at some point over the summer. But once he switched to kind of getting the lead and showing some more speed, he just seemed like he's a little bit of a better horse now. I'm just kind of hoping that the light bulb is kind of turned on with him. And if you go to the pace projector, Kyle, really not a ton of speed in this race. So I'm just going to kind of put my trust in Rusty Arnold that this horse is maybe better this time around and can translate that recent form over to the turf.
And the thing that's nice, obviously, in this 1 3/8, these long distance turf races, speed doesn't matter a whole lot necessarily, at least, compared to like mile races that we see in 6 furlong sprints. However, obviously still makes a difference. If Tennessee Lamb can get out there and just last, realistically speaking, can definitely hang on for a piece in the lane. So definitely don't hate that at all. And Rusty's done this before. I actually found Tennessee Whiskey at the Dam. Thought I saw that before. And yeah, it's one of my favorite named horses. You got Tennessee Moon. They got Dak Daniels, which is fantastic. This horse had a lot of winners on dirt, not a whole lot of luck on turf.
Yeah.
However, again, you said he's probably a different horse now and should get out to the lead, which definitely can hold on for a piece in this race. I have the number 12, who you have in third, Noah. I mentioned at the top of the race in the number 12, Kid Cairo. That post definitely kind of sucks because it looks like it's a pretty quick run up to that first turn. Obviously not the biggest deal, but you don't want to be wide on any turns, frankly, obviously. But that last race makes a whole ton of sense. Was a decent buyer jump, but did have an 81 earlier in 2024. Maybe a little bit of a quick turnaround, but obviously ran on December 15th before that. So Mark Cassidy feels like this horse can be in shape, quicker than a month off and should get a pretty decent trip, probably getting the jump on a horse like the 2.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was kind of reluctant to put him in third, but I ended up doing it just because number 1, I think he might be the most lightly raced horse in here, so obviously can improve. He's a very lightly raced 4-year-old, and Cassie's been very good at Gulfstream. Obviously, Dylan Davis, you talked about. He was one where I was just kind of on the fence because he's coming out of that same race with the 2 Lantheris, but I thought he kind of got the best go of things. And still, I know he ran a third by a length, which maybe on paper looks a little bit better. But again, got a pretty good trip. So I would think for him to have any chance, Dylan Davis has got to work out some kind of, not miracle, but he's got to be able to save ground at some point in the race if this 4-year-old's going to be able to turn the tables in this race.
I actually fully agree with everything you just said there, to be honest with you. Obviously crowded the 2 last time out, but still got a very nice number there. And yeah, he's going to have to tuck in somewhere. And obviously there's no one better really right now than Dylan Davis. So I'm sure he'll pilot him pretty well. I think the last time that test, the 1.5 mile test, worked out really well for Kid Cairo. Now, shortening him up a little bit, not that much. So think that my marathon might really help him. He's working those 2 turf works in December were really good. Obviously, hasn't worked out since, but should be fit enough for Mark Cassidy to run in this spot. It's just the matter of the post position. The one you mentioned, Noah, is my last horse we'll talk about here. Ramblin' Wreck for Danny Gargan, who's basically been all or nothing at Gulfstream Park. He has had obviously very lately a very small barn. Miguel Vasquez he's still, I think he's pretty underrated in terms of jockeys, at least around the nation. You bet Gulfstream all year round, who he is, and he can win at the pretty decent caliber that he gets on. Obviously, when the jockeys come over here in the championship meet, he gets on a little worse caliber horses, although he still manages to win about 10%, which when you cross-reference that with what horses he's on, that's not that bad, realistically speaking. This 92 at Aqueduct was actually a very, very good run. That was at 1 mile and 16th. Ran at 1 mile and 3/8 back in early 2023, but I'd argue that's probably when he wasn't. He did run an 88 at 1 mile and 16th at Saratoga, but maybe not his best. But he's been very consistent, except for that last time out where they really just never picked up his feet. Not too sure what happened there. Maybe it's just a little bit too short for what he wants to do now as a 5-year-old. And obviously Danny Gargan's going to put him at 1 mile and 3/8, so he's thinking the same way. Just thought he's had very, very good closing kick, and if he can put it together at the 1 mile and 3/8 distance, he can definitely run for a piece. However, this would be a tough horse to trust, who didn't run well at the distance the first time, and is going to be one of the lower choices in this race, at least on the win end. Charlie actually has the number 3 Classic Creation on top. I'm sure coming off of that last 2 races at 1 mile and 3/8, where he got back-to-back 86s and finishing behind horses like El Razine, who came back to have a pretty decent campaign for Todd Pletcher, if I'm not mistaken. So, and gets IRAD aboard, but you're going to have to take a hit with the IRAD text there. But obviously, if IRAD's aboard, you assume this horse should be live. So I don't hate Charlie's pick, at least underneath, with the number 3 Classic Creation there in race number 8 to kick off the Late Pick5 and it's actually the only non-stakes race we'll talk about today. They do have a stakes race earlier in the card, which is race number 4. Chose not to talk about it. It's only it's another 7 to 8 horse race. Kind of seems like there's one standout in there as well. So decided not to talk about it. However, definitely could be a point to maybe, if you're playing the contest or something, could definitely take a swing in that race early. I'm going 2-12-1 in race number 8. Noah's going 2-6-12. Charlie's going 2-3-1. Patrick's going 2-1-12. Noah, move on to race number 9, which is the Swale Stakes, going 7 furlongs on the dirt. And as I switch over the Equibase right now, it is a field of 7 in this one as well for 3-year-olds only. And as I switch to the Equibase right now, you'll see here, morning line favorite, most likely, I'd assume, would be the number 6 Gunmetal for Brad Cox and Luis Saez. A lot of money, of course, is going to switch to that Brad Cox, especially with the number he got. We'll talk about it, of course, in a minute here. Grayscale is going to be one to take money as well to the outside for E5 Racing, and Safi Joseph getting IRAD aboard as well. And third choice is most likely going to go to the number 2 Donut God, Gaff Leone, and Brian Lynch. And I switch over the picks right now. I hinted at it already, Noah, because I brought up the wrong race in the first one. However, not a whole lot of diversity from us. We'll argue why, but it looks at least 3 horses on paper, at least based on numbers alone. All of us are going with the number 6 Gunmetal. Could be a little bit of a maybe a little bit short-sighted, but that last race was very, very good by Gunmetal. Of course, we can't watch it because fairgrounds, but it's really interesting that Cox ran him at fairgrounds and brings him over here to run. So it's almost like this move feels to me like there could be bigger things ahead for this horse.
Yeah, there definitely could, but I feel like Cox kind of knows what he wants out of him at this point in his career. He's not reluctant to have the maiden win and then just kind of throw him in deep waters. So he's just kind of taking his time with him. I think the 7 furlong race is a pretty good stepping stone. You said it, Kyle. That last race at Fairgrounds was very good. I don't know if that 96 is inflated, but visually that was very impressive. Just saw it sat off of Prime Power and then just kind of went on by in the stretch. Those two were quite a ways ahead of the rest of the field that day. But yeah, just another stepping stone. I like him the most just because if you go to the time form, it looks like the one Macho Music is probably going to be the speed of the speed. And it was, in a way, he's kind of the key to the race because he was in the race with Guns Loaded, who we'll talk about later on. But, they took the blinkers off, tried to raid him, did not work at all. Blinkers are back on, so I feel like they're just completely sending from the inside. And it just seems like Sias is a choice, whether if Macho Music decides to just send like hell, he can pretty much just sit off. Or if they decide to do what they did last time, Sias can just kind of take over and kind of take them the whole way.
Yeah, I agree. And I completely agree with you on Macho Music. I think they only have one way to go, which is to go. So especially with the blinkers going back on, I think the key to the race, Noah, is honestly Grayscale. What is this horse going to do? I mean, he's fast, but he wasn't necessarily, Gunmetal got out there by, 2/5 quicker last time out. Obviously, he wasn't on the lead. He was a half length behind. Gunmetal is the whole key to the race for me, because if this horse breaks and is going to close in, I also don't think the thing I really like about Gunmetal in this spot, which you could even play a double from that last race, but we'll talk about that, of course, later. I don't know if Gunmetal necessarily needs the lead. He went by very easily. Obviously, Prime Power, he was just rating right off of him. But that, if he's going to sit, if let's say Grayscale outbreaks him and Luis Saez makes the choice to sit just in behind the speed, I don't hate that necessarily. Obviously, you're going to have to go by, what could be pretty decent horse and Grayscale, excuse me. But I don't hate that necessarily either. It just all depends to me what Grayscale and IRAD do to the outside of him to be able to, where is Louis going to sit in this race? Is that kind of how you saw it too?
Yeah, well, I've got Grayscale in third. It was weird. I didn't really know what to do with him because, like you said, he showed speed last time. It was a pretty good effort with that 86 Spire, considering he did not break well at all.
Yep.
It's just kind of weird because he came off of that really nice effort, but Savvy has had him on the bench for quite a while. So in a way, they've kind of had to hit the reset button, and he took a break in works for like almost a month. So it was just weird in that regard. But again, you pick up IRAD, it's E5. Obviously, this horse is live. But from the outside, it's going to be interesting to see if IRAD just sends like what they might do on Macho Music. And then if those three decide to go, then it could really set it up, because Donut God, who it looks like all of us have in second or third, he's only been on the lead and hasn't really proven that he can come from off of it. So if those three duke it out and Donut God's not able to sit off, it could really cause some chaos in the small field.
And that's the thing, right? Getting into these beginning of the 3-year-old year, there's a lot of ironing out that happens. And I feel like these really turn into jockeys races because, like you said, these horses never been tested trying to, pass people, especially Donut God and the number 7 Grayscale in their first couple races, which is why I kind of like Gunmetal, even though he only had passed one horse, right? But he still showed the ability to rate off of a horse and go by, which is a lot of what, none of these other horses have done in their careers. So having that little bit of experience can be very beneficial in a race like this. So especially if Donut God breaks as well, Noah, I have no problem with Luis Saez taking back. Obviously, he's known to be very aggressive, but also can make right decisions, of course, at the right time. Really like Gunmetal in this spot because I feel like he has the ability to do either or. And you see, he worked up to that race at Fairgrounds and he shipped immediately here. No, it's not like he worked at Fairgrounds and then came back over here. It almost seemed like this was the spot that Brad Cox had in mind. We talk about trainer intent a lot on this show. That's what it showed to me in this race. Obviously, Windstar Farm and China Horse Club, they're not going to mess around with this horse. Gunmetal out of a Speightstown mare. They're looking to really improve this horse. And if this horse takes another step forward, Noah, Fountain of Youth has to be on the cards, right? Even if it's a classic case of DFS, Derby Fever Syndrome, I feel like that has to be the next step for this horse. So I really like the spot he's in. I really like the trip he could get in this race. So Gunmetal, definite. It might even be a single for me. If you guys play the pick 5, although there are other horses that can win, but I feel like the consensus among the group is the number 6 gunmetal. We kind of talked about everyone else I really wanted to talk about, Noah. Macho Music, I agree with you completely. Full send, straight go. Be interesting to see what Tyler does on Donut God, who's working very, very fast, especially those last two at Palmetto's, the 47-3, 12 out of 81 on January 18th. And then on January 25th, the Bullet 59-2, 1 out of 22. So almost seems like Donut God's rearing up to go in this race as well, which makes my opinion on gunmetal even more. Maitre D is really the one for Doug O'Neill, Noah, who actually started this horse out at Turfway and shipped didn't ship, worked at Keeneland once, and then came to Gulfstream Park with this spot in mind. This is the one that really can pick up pieces and showed in the last race. So if they go fast up front and they die out, this could be the one to pick up the pieces, at least in my mind. Obviously, you know Doug O'Neill very well for being on the West Coast. Who really doesn't start, does he start out horses a lot away from the West Coast, or does he start them more and bring them over? I feel like that's kind of the way it goes.
Normally not very many, but he's had a couple horses that he's debuted at Turfway. You know me, Kyle, when they go from Turfway to Keeneland, I love that angle.
TT, baby.
It's going to be interesting to see how the Turfway to Gulfstream plays. But I definitely took a look at him because, like we talked about, there's really a decent amount of speed and maybe the one that could, pass horses in some regard. But in that Turfway race, he got a pretty good setup, and there was a very heavy favorite that day, Sea Vista for Brad Cox, who was just completely awful, which is why partially why he was 26-1 on the board. So I just don't know if that field was all that great, but hey, I'm going to root for the angle. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, for the boys, absolutely. And actually, funny, one more thing. That last race, I kind of showed it on the screen as well. I mean, nobody came back in this grayscale race to run well at all. Commendator finished 4.5 lengths behind him, came back to run granted against Gosker and Ain't No Disco, very, very well-known horses in the Bettin N Boozin podcast, but didn't run very well at all. Got a 57. Every single horse regressed, and the horses that only improved to a 50. So again, absolutely blitzed the field last time, but again, really didn't face anybody. So you really don't know who grayscale is in the grand scheme of things. Could definitely turn out to be very good or very bad. Obviously, we'll see on Sunday and Saturday, and pay attention to the board. Obviously, you can't for the late pick 5. This is the second leg in, but if you're betting it vertically, pay attention to where the money is going, especially in doubles and pick 3s. I'm going 6-7-2. Noah's going 6-2-7. Charlie's going 6-7-2. Pat's going 6-2-7. So a little 2v2 there and see who gets second. But guys, we'll move on to race number 10 here, and it's the Kitten's Joy Stakes. It's another listed stake on the card at Gulfstream Park, but also it's a mile and 16th back on the turf for 3-year-olds only. It's a field of 8, but with one very intriguing returner, including someone that's in the background in the green room right now. But I will get to him in a second as we bring up our picks on the board right now. Noah, you are the only one going a little bit off the board here. The rest of us are going with the most likely morning line favorite in the number 6 test score. The way I feel about this card, Noah, I'll bring on Charlie right now. I feel like this card really has the look to me where it could be very, very chalky, or some really weird stuff can happen on this card. And this race is one of them, because as I bring up the Equibase, you can see the number 6 test score, Tyler Gaffalione and Graham Motion is your most likely. It has to be the morning line favorite based off that last race on Breeders' Cup Saturday at Del Mar. I believe it was Saturday. And the Siskiny Stakes. The Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance Stakes. Sorry, Charlie, you caught a straight right away. But there's a couple other horses that will take money, but I think test score is going to be a pretty solid morning line favorite in here. But Noah, I know Charlie just joined, but we will let Noah talk first because he's the one that's a little bit off the wall here, going with the number 7 in this race. Coco Cool from our Cassie, coming over from Woodbine and Turfway Park last time.
Yeah, I'm not really an all button guy, but I thought this race was absolutely impossible. I literally think any of these horses can win. I have so many question marks about some of these horses, so take my picks with a grain of salt. I ended up going with Coco Cool, who on debut actually was the favorite, and knowingly enough, the connections had no idea why he ran so poorly. Put him on the turf, absolutely loved it. Was very impressive, and then they tried to get him into that TAA stakes that you talked about, Kyle. was I believe it was like the third or fourth AE, like 17 or 18. Couldn't quite get in. Had to take a little bit of a break. Brought him to Turfway. Got the job done there. Beat a horse that you might be familiar with, Kyle, Baby Max, for the Kelsey Danner barn, who came back and ran a 79. And it looks like that race came back pretty good. So I'm not really too worried that the buyer was a little light, A, because the horses came back and improved their buyer, and B, Turfway is just very weird and strange. Gets back on the turf. I just have a feeling Irad's here for some reason, and I've kind of seen what some of these other horses can do. I know there's a second-time starter, some third-time starters, but I don't know if we've seen the best from Coco Cool. So I'm going to go in that direction, and there's a decent amount of speed. I think Charlie, I can maybe set it up. He'll probably be sitting second flight. So in a wide-open race, I went with Coco Cool. I don't know what you're going to get on the board, but I just thought this race was wide open.
I mean, I don't disagree with you by any means. I probably overlooked this horse a little bit. Obviously, just based on that last race, that didn't get too much of a obviously a big buyer. I don't like when horses decrease, but it is Turfway going a mile. I like that he's had mile experience now coming in a mile in the 16th race here. So this is definitely one to watch on the board. Obviously, it's going to take money. Irad's aboard, but if this horse is like second choice, I think that's definitely one that you need to look at. Charlie, I mentioned test score is going to be the morning line favorite, going to be the favorite after that very good run in the Aftercare Alliance, which I will show. Time form as well. Projected fast pace with the 2 Charlies to blame and the number 5 Walking in Memphis, who are both pretty quick out of the gate. The 6 test score and number 7 Coco Cool should be sitting pretty near each other in this race. But what'd you like most about test score?
Yeah, I think test score is just a horse that's honestly just sitting on a big effort. I saw this I saw this horse 2 back when it actually ended up beating me and putting me in a locker because I had West Beach in a huge double. Also ran against Zulu Kingdom, tenacious leader, so I had some decent horses in that grade 3. And even on debut, ran against Governor Sample. Obviously, he's more of a sprinter, but I just think test score by far has faced the best competition of anyone in this field. And I thought that effort last time was monster. Obviously, it was not an easy gate to work out of. Did not get the best pace setup either, and still came flying like a flight train. And I know. Jackson, obviously, I'm sorry to bring bad memories for him, but I'm sure he's hardened because he absolutely
was this horse.
Yeah.
It was this horse.
Ran into some trouble in the stretch. Just ran absolutely huge, but unfortunately, ultimately just did not get the same sort of jump that this 10 ultimately did with Chasing Liberty. But test score ran a deserving win. And again, I like what I'm seeing from this one. I like the consistency. And by the way, horse aside, can we just talk about how unbelievable? I don't know if you guys talked on it without me, but how unbelievable Tyler G has been at Gulfstream lately.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been by far and away the best jockey.
And honestly, a little tidbit for the boss here, Charlie. Sorry, there's the gallop out for you. A little tidbit for the boss there. We continue.
And honestly, not trying to take a shot at Noah's pick, but I do kind of hope this 7 gets a little overbet because of Irad, just because I think, quite honestly, and I've said this for a while, and I think I've been biased, but now we're starting to see it. How Irad is getting the Irad tax in Gulfstream. I think if you're at Gulfstream, the reality is the jockey that should be getting taxed is Tyler G.
I mean, he's still winning at 26%, Chuckles.
I'm not shooting, but I'm saying on the big days. I mean,
I understand.
Tyler G shows up.
That last one didn't. Obviously, we saw what happened, although he won on 2 Savvy horses and obviously won the $3 million Pegasus World Cup. So I don't think we can talk too much crap, but I do understand what you're getting. He's riding perfectly. Graham Ocean is 0 for 23. However, like Charlie said, I really, really like that last effort. And actually, I did like him last time. I had him second picked. On our power picks we sent out for the Breeders' Cup. I completely forgot that was this horse that Jackson had a massive win bet on. For those that don't know, Jackson Muniz, of course, good friend of the podcast, a contributor on Pacific Horseplayers. Yeah, he had like $100 win bet on this horse that was 12-1 and just ended up missing by a neck. Yeah, that was a heartbreaker, especially since this horse came flying. I think this horse is just sitting on a really good effort. Obviously, Tyler G hops aboard, and with the fast pace that this horse should get in this race, I feel like test score could be sitting on a very, very big one in this race. I went with the number 1 and 2nd, Entered a Dragon for Jose D'Angelo. Maher hops aboard on this one. Thought that last race was really good, and I'll just show the stretch race as well. Really had nowhere to go at the top of the stretch and absolutely exploded. Obviously, it's Tampa Bay. You can take it for what it is. I just thought visually this was very impressive. You're looking at the 5 here. always can tell Sammy Camacho by the little ball that he wears on the top of his head, just like how I used to tell Bet Mitch Get Rich apart from everybody at Arlington. But you could see Camacho's just aching for somewhere to go, anywhere to go. Finally, he's going to get room, still stymied once the close there, and he's going to shoot the gap here, and this horse is going to absolutely fly home. So, again, visually, I thought that was very impressive, but I'm completely understanding that this is a much, much different race than what that one, this last that this horse was running in. But wanted to include this horse somewhere at what should be a decent price in a field like this, maybe to catch a piece for somewhere on the in the second, third, or fourth places to round out your exotics. Noah, Tiz Dashing, I think, is the last horse we'll probably talk about, except actually, Charlie, I'll let you talk about the 8, and then we'll move on. Tiz Dashing, that last race in the Avod was actually really good, I thought, from Tiz Dashing. Just missed, was favored on that day at 7-5. Just didn't really, I don't think he got the jump. I think Valuation Metric just had a little bit of a cleaner trip from that standpoint. Just had the momentum to the outside and just ended up beating him on the bob at the wire. But I thought still a very, very good effort and working unbelievable at Palmettos.
Oh, he is working very well. Yeah, Tiz Dashing coming off a little bit of a layoff, but I don't really mind it. Barkley Tag doesn't really run maybe as many horses as he used to back in the day, but has had limited success here at Gulfstream. But hoping for some kind of maturity with the two efforts that he's run so far. First race that he won was, good, got the job done, was a pretty good race, then stretched him out to 2 turns, ran just fine that day, just lost Evaluation Metric. Who's a decent horse for Chad, who we haven't seen since that race, but was pretty well meant. But yeah, Velasquez hops on. This is just another one I thought was going to kind of be sitting behind those leaders. And then the last thing I'll touch on, this is owned by Sakatoga Stable, who obviously sounds like Saratoga, so they're more of a New York-based ownership. Yes, but they bring particular horses down. And Barkley Tag and that ownership group are 21% at Gulfstream the last 5 years. So I feel like they just kind of pick their spots, and they're going to bring horses here that they think can run well. So I'm glad everybody's got him in the mix somewhere, because I think you'll probably get a decent price on him.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. The shipping with intent, Barkley Tag, honestly, as much as I don't bet him, he does spot his horses really well, and he doesn't run his horses necessarily in places that he doesn't think they can win. So the fact that this one shipped down to Palmettos in middle of December, and it looks like they've been gearing up for this spot exactly, is something that I really like. So I agree with you, Jim, is that what was the track like at Palmettos on January 26th, where a 46-3 work is only the 13th best out of 52 on that day on the turf. I completely agree with you. Obviously, it's very fast in Florida on the turf down there. I treat it just like Santa Anita from that standpoint. The dirt at Palmettos is deeper, but when you're basically running on what's a nice Bay Hill green out there at Palmettos, you can definitely go pretty fast. Charlie, last horse we'll talk about, Mibago, who wins on the lead. There should be a pretty fast pace, but I think the thing I like about him, Charlie, is that granted, was at 5 furlongs, showed he could pass ever since he got back to these routing distance. He obviously shown that he goes to the lead more often than not, but has shown that he can rate before.
Yeah, and I think the effort that really stood out to me was the 1-2 back, because Hit That Review, who's a nice horse that I think, Kyle, you and I were all over when that horse broke its maiden, was sitting right off Mibago, and I actually had Mibago I had that review that day, and I thought, all right, perfect, going to stalk right off and go by. And then because of what you were talking about, I didn't really know if Mibago could truly handle this distance, as we saw in the Del Mar race when they weren't going that fast and the horse didn't have it. But then one going away and convincing, and that's kind of what stood out to me is I think the distance is certainly a question, but I also think Mark Cassie's been having a terrific meet, and he's another one who's really smart about spotting his horses. And I feel like if he didn't think Mibago could get the distance, he wouldn't. That being said, I do think there is other speed in this race, and I think ultimately what it comes down to is the ride that Dylan Davis gives, which is also a big jockey upgrade in my opinion, because I think if Mibago goes to the lead in a pace like this, that's a horse you play against. But I think if Mibago can sit off of some of this other speed, could be very dangerous.
No.
Yeah, I just want to mention, probably just for some of the handicappers, you know how you touched on one of the races prior was kind of a jockey's race. This is almost a kind of a trainer's race in a weird way, because Cassie's got 3 in here. And
Yes.
two of them are speed. And he's also got two horses that are owned by West Point. One of them is speed in the 5 walking in Memphis, who I think will probably go and maybe try to set it up
100% will.
the other West Point and the 3 Maui Strong, who I've gotten third. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this race plays out, because Mibago is primarily a speed type. But in the other, Cassie and Haramia, who has only shown, I guess it's only one start, but I feel like they're probably going to go with that one. So
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see.
no, it's a very good observation, honestly, and we'd like to talk about that when we can. Especially Mark Cassie's not a guy that you see, unless it's Woodbine, realistically speaking, that doesn't have multiple entrants in one race. And if, like you said, multiple of them are speed, and the one that's not is Coco Cool, that one gets IRAD aboard. I mean, like I said, people got to pay attention. Obviously, it only makes your pick look better, Noah, and me look like a moron, especially if he wins for fun on Saturday. I'm going 6-1-4. Noah's going 7-4-3. Charlie's going 6-8-4. Pat's going 6-4-7. Guys, let's move on to the feature on the card. It is the Grade 3 Holy Bull Stakes. Of course, a 25-point race to the Kentucky Derby. And as I bring up the Equibase right now, it is only a field of 7. However, I feel like it's a very competitive field of 7 as I bring up the Equibase right now. There's 3 horses. I'm going to assume the morning line favorite will be the number 2 Ferocious, coming out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with a pretty decent amount of trouble and just weird shit happening, realistically speaking, without just telling it like it is. Number 3, Tappin Street's a very nice up-and-coming horse for Brad Cox. Luis Saez hops aboard there. And the number 4, Guns Loaded for Irad Ortiz and Jose D'Angelo, also looking to score some points from the 4-hole. And as I switch to the picks right now, 2 of them are going with the number 4, Guns Loaded, and Patrick and Noah. Charlie, as you guys would imagine if you guys been following the show, is going with Ferocious, number 2. I'm actually going with the number 3, Tappin Street. I know the boss will be pretty happy with that pick as well. But Charlie, I'll let you go first, my friend. What I imagine is going to be the morning line favorite in this race and the post time favorite. That last race was just so weird for this horse. Was in mid. I mean, you can talk about it, but was in the middle, then was in the back, then flew at the end. Just a lot of weird stuff. Obviously, very talented. Just got to put it together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, has been in the biggest races of this field, coming out of 3 straight grade 3s, is working well. And actually, I'd read an article talking about how they weren't really sure when they were going to bring Ferocious back, because obviously they did want to take their time with him, but he was working so damn well that Gustavo Delgado said he had to put him in this spot. I also like the blinkers on, because I do think that is part of the reason why he has been a little funky, and kind of, we saw it in the Juvenile, and we also saw it in the Hopeful against Chancer, where he has this weird thing where he'll sometimes lose focus and sort of start to disengage rather than actually fade like it looks like. And then as soon as he sort of wakes up again, he re-rallies. Because I encourage the viewers especially to go watch the Hopeful, because if you watch in that race, I mean, it looks like Chancer's going to go by and win for fun, and Ferocious is going to fade back by 4 or 5 lengths. And then as soon as Ferocious saw Chancer re-engaged, and that's kind of what happened also in the Juvenile. Didn't get the lead, but I actually kind of like that, because I do think Ferocious is a horse who can potentially rate if they just help teach him, because I think he is still a very green horse that's learning it. But I think if all of these horses run to their best, Ferocious is much the best. Obviously, you guys disagree, and I have a feeling, I know a lot of people have love for Tappin Street, so I'm sure other horses are going to take decent money too. I will say if this horse is anywhere near 5-2, I'm going to have to put a healthy wager, or 2-1 even. I'm going to have to. I just think Ferocious is sitting on a big effort. I like that he's had this time to work and get through some stuff, and I think as he matures, he's going to become a bigger and bigger threat for this race and the Derby.
Look, he obviously has run very well. It's just a matter of putting it together for him. This horse is, leave this horse out of your own peril. No, I mean, this horse is going to be he's going to be bet hard in this race, but if you leave this horse out, I feel like you're asking for trouble, at least in this spot. That last race in the Juvenile, like I said, super weird. I like the fact that they're adding blinkers on. This horse is bought for $1.3 million. They want this horse to succeed. Their aim is the Derby. It's just going to be, obviously, and I don't necessarily like Charlie said, they've talked about how they don't know when they're going to bring him in. It almost doesn't seem like this was the plan all along. But if he's working as well as he is, you gotta respect these connections.
Well, I want to see the article that Charlie's referring to, because I didn't see it. But if that's actually true, I might move him up a little bit. I was able to watch his works a little bit on XBTV, and I had a feeling that this wasn't really the plan initially. I don't know. From what I saw in the mornings, he doesn't necessarily look on the muscle. So I don't know if this is just, maybe just to get him started in his 3-year-old career. Maybe it's just a trial and error to see if the blinkers work with him or not. So I don't know. But to Charlie's point, I think he's going to sit a really good trip because Tappan Street's probably going to show some speed. Guns Loaded is going to show some speed. So, if he's able to show something that's pretty close to his best, I think it's going to be good enough. But Tappan Street and Guns Loaded, I think, are going to be pretty tough. And I just don't know if he's at his best right now.
I think that's fair. Charlie, if you want to say anything to that, feel free, because maybe this could be a prep down the line, considering this horse hasn't run since the Breeders' Cup. However, he could just be better, realistically speaking. And even if he's just 80%, he could just be better.
I was going to say, I certainly think those are all valid points. I also just think, quite frankly, though, that with a field of this level, and I'm not saying this is a bad field by any means. There's certainly horses with potential, and we could see multiple horses in this race, make it to the Derby field come that first Saturday in May. That being said, I also do think that is part of it. Is I think prep or not, I think realistically, if he puts up at least a B+ performance, he should beat this field. And I also think because when he tries to run back, to the Fountain of Youth later, potentially the Florida Derby, I think those fields are going to be more loaded and more talented. So I kind of just feel like this is the time to start, banking points and try to put himself in that firm position where they don't have to stress as much and, maybe even experiment some other things, blinkers on or off, rating him or not. I think this is a huge opportunity for him to show off his class and kind of take this time off to get his crap together and have a big statement win.
I think that's fair. Noah, you're going with number 4, Guns Loaded. This horse ran huge off a maiden win. Won the Mutual Macho Man, however, it was a little bit of a diminishing win in that race. But if I go to the time form, they have Tappan Street on the lead. I can't imagine a race that Ferocious isn't at least aggressive. I mean, maybe he'll probably just sit pocket. But obviously, if the 4 and 3 shake out like that, you'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and it's going to be weird because, Tappan Street could be, super talented, obviously $1 billion purchase, won on debut. I think the fact that Guns Loaded is drawn directly outside of him is going to hurt him a lot because size is going to have to, take back and then come with a sustained run. And then it's the mile of 16, so they're going to be finishing on the first wire. But my thought with Guns Loaded is if D'Angelo didn't think he could go this far, wouldn't he be running an hour earlier in the swale?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just the DFS that we talk about, but he is gun runner. Bernardini Maher, he's got 2 sibs that actually went this far and were able to get the job done going a mile or further. So, everyone's just going to say, doesn't want to go this far, but if Tappan Street decides to take back, I don't think Guns Loaded is really going to go all that fast. He's pretty fast naturally, but I see a scenario where he could probably take him all the way. And I think he might slightly get overlooked just because people are just going to say, can't go that far. So I don't know. I thought it was a really tough decision between one of these 3. And I'm glad Pat landed with me. I wish I could hear what he said, but ended up going with Guns Loaded.
Actually, that scenario that you just pointed out, Noah, I'm hoping the 4 breaks like that and clears, I would love for Louis to take to the outside with the number 3 Tappan Street. That number, both on time form and on buyer, came back very, very good. Time form came back a 110. Buyer came back an 84. Guns Loaded best race, which was the actually last race on time form, according to this. That second race, they had a 106 on time form only. That last race for Tappan Street was a 110. So, again, we talk about comparing different speed figures on this show. This is definitely one that sticks out to me as a little bit, like a red flag. What's going on between these 2 races? I love that last race from Tappan Street. And the boss has talked to us at length about he's working with Patch Adams in the morning. And I think it was January 19th, if I'm not mistaken, completely outworked Patch Adams. Obviously, Patch Adams didn't come back to win at Oaklawn last time out, although did still run decently well in probably a scenario that wasn't necessarily the best for him. I really like Tappan Street in this race. If Irad goes on Guns Loaded, Louis can just take to the outside, gets a jump on Ferocious, talking about the first wire finish, right, where they have – it's not necessarily as egregious as a place like Keeneland where it's not the shortest stretch in the world, but you always favors the horses that are a little bit more forwardly placed towards that first line finish, obviously with the shorter stretch. I love where Tappan Street's going to sit in this race. Louis can get him into a very nice position. I think he's got a very, very, very good chance to win this race and obviously go on to bigger and better things. I feel like also, as you mentioned with Ferocious Snow, I feel like this is the exact plan all along, especially with that last win at 7. Now going to the 2-turn distance, of course, doing it for the first time. But if Ferocious is favored, I definitely feel that taking a shot on Tappan Street could be more warranted value-wise than Ferocious, maybe even guns loaded with IRAD aboard. It'd be interesting to see how the board shakes out in this race. Last horse I want to talk about real quick, then we can move on. I figured you have Burnham Square, by the way, Charlie, in second. You always go back to the well with your horses. Burning Glory for Bill Mott, Tyler Gaffleone. This is another one that the discrepancies show. That last race is the best race on time form based on number, and it's only a 75 buyer. So, again, one thing that I definitely have to take into account and have to relook at that race pretty closely. That was at a mile at Churchill Downs. Got a really nice setup, of course. They went very fast early, but did it very well and is going to be one. If they do end up going fast early, this is easily one that could pick up the pieces, and Tyler hops aboard in this race. So, Charlie, do you want to say something, by the way?
Oh, no, sorry. Go. No, oh, wait, is this one the 7? Did I mess up?
No, this is the 6.
Oh, okay, then I didn't. Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, just build off what you were saying, because this is one I thought about putting in. I think this one is definitely interesting. I'll let you elaborate a little more if you want, but I was kind of torn between this one and Burnham Square because I didn't want to go all chalk. But yeah, I agree with you. When I watched that effort back, I thought it was pretty impressive. I liked it. I think this one honestly could get the distance for sure and could get the setup. And I also think it speaks volumes that Tyler G's back aboard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, Jose riding down at Fairgrounds, but ran at a mile 16th, ran very well. Was 8-1 that day, then came back at a 1-turn mile, and obviously won not necessarily by too much, but maybe a mile 16 could be exactly what into mischief. Tap it, Maher. This horse will want all the distance in the world. Burnham Square, that last race was very good. Charlie, we're gonna move on, but that last race was very good. Definitely fits based on buyer numbers, but again, we talk about it. Timeform has that last race in an 86 rated lower than this race for Burning Glory at a 75 buyer. That's an 11 buyer difference, but a 108 on Timeform for Burnham Square and a 111 on Timeform for Burning Glory. So again, take everything you can into account, but I think Burning Glory definitely has a chance, especially if they go fast early. Definitely will be using in exactas and trifectas. I'm going 3-2-6. Noah's going 4-3-2. Charlie's going 2-7-3. Pat's going 4-3-2 in the feature Holy Bull Stakes on the road to the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. But guys, let's move from that and let's go to 3-year-old fillies going 7 furlongs on the dirt. Of course, could lead into other maybe Oaks implications. Of course, it's a field of 11, so definitely a much bigger field than the last 2 we've talked about. You'll see our picks on the screen right now. 2 people are going with the 11, and Charlie and Patrick. That's number 11, the Florida bred Stunner for Tyler Gaffleone, Brad Cox. Noah's going with number 3, Justin Queso. I like that. I'm interested to see what you have to say. Joe Bravo, Ian Wilkes. I'm going with the number 7, Eclatant for Luis Saez and Brad Cox. A little bit off the wall pick there, but although I'm very glad to see everyone has Eclatant in second and I have her in first. I'm assuming, granted, it's Brad Cox, but is going to be at least, I would assume, a middling price somewhere in there, as you do have the number 2, Queen's MG, in there as well. Charlie, I'll let you go first. You have the number 11 Stunner. I mentioned most likely morning line favorite. That last buyer really didn't come back that good, although this is going back to 1 turn, probably exactly what this horse wants to do.
Yeah, and that was honestly a bit of a weird race. I'm not entirely sure what happened when I was watching it at first. I knew they were going somewhat fast, but Stunner looked honestly good, and Zayas looked incredibly confident. And then all of a sudden, once they start to turn from home, goes from looking like Stunner's going to run away for fun to she was completely empty off the turn. And I think part of that is just naturally what the fractions were. Part of it was just getting pressed. And I think it is one of those things where, we always talk about how jockeys can't entirely know just how fast they're going. And I think maybe looking back, Zayas wishes he didn't push the button quite as soon or go quite as early, because Stunner had, space where she didn't have to push. But I'll tell you what, those last two efforts before that in New York were very impressive to me. And I kind of feel, debut lost to Sensei Pro, who I know we haven't seen since, but was a horse who I was already saying early on is an Oaks horse to watch out for. Hey, everybody, it ran against some decent horses, and she dealt with that easily, and then ran against the Queen's MG, who had a nice win later on, and dealt with her pretty easily. I like the turn back. I like the distance. I understand the post means Tyler's probably gonna have to somewhat go, but I'm not 100% certain or sold that she absolutely needs the lead, but I think Tyler can get the lead if he does. I do think she's the class of the field, and I just think she's more proven to me than some of these others. And I have full confidence that Brad Cox has this one ready and will run back towards those last two buyers in New York, which I think would make her very tough to beat.
I think definitely. Noah, the only thing I have on her, granted, obviously, post 11 doesn't mean too much. I actually prefer it coming out of these shoots at Gulfstream Park. I much prefer the outside to the inside. However, there's a pretty decent amount of speed in this race. They have the 9 going in front. The Queen's MG is definitely not slow. Beyond Belief, who's been on or close to the lead in her 2 starts, is not slow. Be really interesting to see what kind of trip the 11 gets from out there, which has ended up why I put the 7 on top, and maybe why you put the 3 on top in your picks as well.
Well, Stunner is kind of weird because, like Charlie said, she was about as close to a sure thing as you can get in that last race, and she just completely hit a wall. Obviously, it looks like she doesn't really want to go that far, so it seems like the ideal spot. I think I would have more confidence in her and have her higher if I knew she was going to get the lead, but I really don't think she's going to, because I think the 9 Rojo Rita is pretty fast for the Safi barn, and if there's for some reason, if Rojo Rita doesn't break all that well and Stunner is able to clear, I think she could be very tough to beat.
Yeah, I hate that they do this. It goes. I mean, the one at the Gulfstream Park, how they have like the back view to the gate on these types of races. The notes say she stumbled at the start and then had to rush up completely. Obviously, that could change your choice, but yeah, I mean, she should not have lost that last race, realistically speaking. So I agree with you. Sorry, I just had to point that out. But continue talking about Stunner, and then feel free to go into your top pick.
I don't think there's really much else to say about Stunner. I'll move into the 3, Justin Queso, who is probably a little bit of a flyer, and you should get a decent price. She, I believe, was the one where there was a big debacle about whether Micah Husband should have been taken down on the 2 or not, where the 1 and the 2 were kind of battling in the stretch. And those two kind of got into it. Micah Husbands was kind of leaning on the 1 and continuously hitting her left-handed. And actually ended up getting DQ, but I don't really think Justin Queso was ever going by. That being said, I think Dominant Diva is a pretty good horse. I believe that's also from the Safi barn. And as we know, Ian Wilkes is not really a guy that cranks first time out. So for this horse to break from the inside, take some dirt, kind of angle out and have a big run like that and get that 85 buyer, I thought was pretty impressive. She's going to have speed in front of her today. Obviously reluctant that Joe Bravo rides, as Charlie knows. I'm not a huge fan of Jersey Joe, whatever the hell his name is.
Check that off the bingo card, everyone. Bettin N Boozin hating on jockeys.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is she actually worked with Burnham Square, who's in the race we talked about before. She completely dusted him, I thought. She was very impressive. She looks like she's on her toes going into this race. And again, she's going to get some speed. So, if they duke it out, the 9 and the 11, I think it could completely set up for her.
Absolutely. Obviously, you're taking basically it's not bait. She hasn't crossed the wire first. And you mentioned, that was the whole debacle. That's 100% true. Although I thought, like I said, she ran very well last time. And if that 85, especially for Ian Wilkes' first time out, as you touched on, definitely an eye opener for sure. So Justin Queso could be a player. Obviously, the board is going to tell a lot in this race. Let's talk about Eclatant, guys. This is a horse last year who ran at Churchill. We saw her at Keeneland. I thought she was absolutely fantastic. Obviously, a lot better horses in that race. Got wrapped up by like the 16th pole. The buyer figures came back. Really, no one else came back. Waneka came back. Dream Girl came back to win. Dancing Magic came back to hold her buyer in that next one in the Myrtlewood at Keeneland, actually at the end of the meet. So maybe a little bit too quick for her. But I thought she ran great last year. Now coming back into this spot, she ran the Goldenrod last time against some pretty good horses in Good Cheer and Quiet Sight. Granted, she was nowhere near. This is another horse exactly like Stunner, where she's on the turn back from a mile and the 16th now to 7 furlongs. If they go quick up front, Charlie, she's going to be the one to get first run on a lot of these other horses. And I feel like she's has the talent to be able to get the jump and stay in front going 7.
Yeah, I think we also have to point out that even though, Luis Saez is aboard and he's normally aggressive, that there are 2 Brad Cox horses in this race. So I don't think I see both sides, and I agree with you. I think Equitan's the one that's going to have to sit because, A, the post position, and B, I just think Stunner's naturally faster. But look, I know we were talking about Sensei Peral, where I briefly touched on that was an Oaks horse. But if we want to talk about a horse that really looks like on the Oaks show that we covered on the show, who the boss loved, was Good Cheer. I mean, Good Cheer is an animal. Like, not literally, but also figuratively.
Yes, very good, Charlie. Very good.
Great observation.
Good Cheer has been incredibly impressive. So I don't think that's anything to be embarrassed about. I think Equitan is another one like Stunner. I think these are 2 horses who will greatly appreciate this cutback. And to me, I think you could argue they're thanks, Matt. They're arguably the 2 horses to beat. I also will say, though, as much as I do like Equitan and Stunner, I kind of think how Noah was talking about the race before is the one where he might spread. For me, this is one where I might spread. I think we can all agree, outside of a few horses, this Phillies division has not been the easiest to trust. And even those who have won, like, Immersive, for example, we've still had lots of question marks about. So I think this is a race where there's a lot of other horses that could realistically win. I even think, you look towards the outside, I think we have to at least talk about briefly the 9 and 10. I mean, Roja Rita won by what, 16? Sorry, one sec.
Jeez, man. Come on. Get it together.
While he's
calling horses animals.
While he's taking his drink, Kyle, I might jump into your camp if Equitan is like a sneaky 5-2, 3-1, just because I think she is better with the target. She kind of found herself on the lead last time, going further than I think she wants to.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know, I wonder if people are going to maybe back off a little bit because Quiet Side came back and ran last weekend at Oaklawn and was not very good.
Yeah.
But I think she's better with the target. And if she's a decent price, I might have to switch camps.
For me, I feel like it could easily, unless Justin Caser runs really well, which again, hats off to you if she does, I could easily see Brad Cox 1-2 in this race. If whether Stunner stays ahead, or Stunner stays ahead, or Equitan just gets the better of her in the lane and passes her, I could easily see 7-11 or 11-7, 7-11 Slurpee time. But it could be one thing or another. Charlie, now that you are hydrated, please continue.
Yeah, well, obviously now that we've made it very clear that these are all animals. Obviously, look, it's Edgar Zayas aboard with, Safi is the trainer. Horses working pretty solidly. I understand. I went back and watched that race. That field was obviously no world beaters. It's a maiden special weight 40. But the time wasn't bad. I understand also they weren't flying, but this horse still had plenty left in the tank, can definitely stretch out. And, won by 16, so I think it's one you have to at least look at. And then Frida, I think, is another one that's interesting for D'Angelo. Just because that one already, went 6.5. Granted, again, this field was awful. I think it's kind of similar. I know I missed the race, but I got to hear it in the background what you guys talked about for Grayscale, I think it was, where we talked about that race didn't come back great, but the horse still won impressively. So I think that one's to look out for. And, obviously these City of Light horses, are starting to draw a lot more attention since Fierceness. And I think Frida's another one to at least look at. I think the big question again for her is also, the class and how she can handle this. But I just think this is a pretty open race. But I do agree. I feel like this is kind of one or two ways. This could be a Brad Cox 1-2, or this could be a race for just about anything.
Literally anything. I agree with you. I mentioned that earlier about a race. This is one thing that seems to me like it's 7-11 or literally could be. Maybe the Queen's MG, but this is a horse, Noah, and I actually respect you for not having her in. She's like all or nothing to me. Like she either runs lights out or runs terribly. Like there's no in between for her. Obviously, the Adirondack last year at Saratoga, I couldn't believe how much she just absolutely won. She could win by as much as she wants that day. Schuylerville was the same way at Saratoga. Then comes back in the spin away, runs terribly. People are saying, it's the mud. Okay. Comes back at Aqueduct going a mile. Nowhere. Granted, lost a Stunner and Impulse by two very nice fillies, but isn't she supposed to run at least a little bit better than what she's run the last two? And she's going to be bet here, obviously. C2, Safi, and Irad. She's going to take money.
Yeah, and I just don't really see a scenario where she flips the tables on Stunner. I know there's a decent amount of speed, but those 2-year-old filly races at Saratoga were just not great. And until she got to the spin away, obviously, Immersive, Quiet Side, some decent quality animals. But yeah, she's going to take money. She hasn't really done all that much, and we've kind of seen what she can do.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't really know how she's going to turn the tables on Stunner unless there's just a lot of weird shit that goes on, and maybe she gets up. But then again, she's going to be a pretty low price.
Yeah, and that's exactly. Is that worth trusting at a price that's going to be? I think she's going to be 5-2, 3-1. I think Eclatant's going to be just above her. Yeah, it's just hard to trust her. And knowing I'm going to say that, I'm going to look like an absolute donkey when she wins by 5 on Saturday. But I feel like that just needs to be, yeah. And I agree, Matt. I completely agree with you. He says this feels like a logical comeback story, but there's not such a thing. In his opinion, things have changed so much between summer 24 and now, and he doesn't think the price is right to be able to take a shot on a horse like this. And Matt, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm going 7-11-2 to close out the late pick 5. Noah's going 3-7-11. Charlie and Patrick are both going 11-7-2. Guys, we'll move into best bets. I'll talk about Patrick's first, which you did put, they're in there.
Yeah.
Patrick's best bets, race number 9 and exacta 6/2. That is, of course, in the swale going with Gunmetal over Donut God. So again, that's very logical in that regard. And win on the number 6 test score, although I think that horse will be the favorite in that one. Definitely a very logical winner. Good luck to Patrick with his best bets. Charlie, I'll let you go next. 2 doubles, harboring actually with 3 horses that you feel very good about. But of course, Ferocious is one of them in race number 11, into Stunner in race 12. And then in race number 9, you're targeting 2, which is Gunmetal and Grayscale, into the number 6 in the Kitten's Joy, who is test score. Could even play like a late pick 4 as well with that type of a very skinny one, but a late pick 4 nonetheless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll touch more on the first part because I'll briefly touch on the second part. I know we already covered Ferocious and Stunner. I just think the cutback will help, and if Stunner runs back to those 2 New York races, is the horse to be. And I've already made it clear I've been on the Ferocious bandwagon for a while. I think it's one that's just learning and still figuring things out. But if he's working well, as they're saying he is, and he's continuing to mature, I think he's by far the class of the field. And then for the earlier part, I know I wasn't there for race 9, but for me, I thought Gunmetal was the most impressive. I don't know what you guys had thought when you covered it. I also think can handle the distance and was very impressive. And I like that Luis is aboard now. And then Grayscale, I don't really know what to make of this horse. As you guys, I'm sure, talked about, that field was not special. I remembered watching that race live and thinking right away, like, with the money Grayscale was taking and, obviously well meant with the price tag, should dominate this field. And, didn't put a step wrong and also looked to still have more in the tank despite the bad start and is working well and gets IRAD aboard. So I had to throw that one into the double. But I will say the 6 would be my top pick. And then going into test score again, I just think that's another one sitting on a big one who's been doing well. I know Motion's out of Charles, gets Tyler G aboard, gets that time to get refreshed, and should sit a nice stalking trip.
No, absolutely. Again, have nothing to say against any of it because I completely could understand if anything of that happens. Of course, you can play pick 3s, pick 4s. You can play a ton of stuff, incorporating Charlie's best bets there. So good luck to you, Charlie, of course. Going with same exact best bet as Pat, whether that's for good or for not there, Mr. Noah. You're going race number 9 and exacta 6/2. Of course, I've already mentioned it before, but I will do it again. In the number 6 Gunmetal over the number 2 Donut God in race number 9. And race number 11, going big or go home with the number 4 Guns Loaded, as you talked about, with the 3 and the 7 in race number 12, and this is the forward gal with Justin Queso and Eclatant.
Yeah, in race 9, I think Gunmetal is probably the most likely winner on the day, if I had to guess. So it wouldn't be surprised if he won. And then I'll try to get Donut God in second into the exacta because we didn't really touch on him too much. But I'm hoping he doesn't need the lead just from what I saw, just kind of how he runs and his style. I don't think he necessarily needs the lead. And then fast forward to the Holy Bull. I think people are going to overlook Guns Loaded. I think if Jose D'Angelo thinks he can go 2 turns, I think he can go 2 turns. And I could definitely see a scenario where he takes him the whole way.
Yeah.
And then in the finale, I got the 3 Justin Queso and then the 7 Eclatant. Justin Queso will be the price. Eclatant maybe a little bit shorter, but just not a huge fan of Stunner. So if it's one of those 2, I think I've kind of got it locked in.
Look, it's very fair. Again, you're trying to be favorites here, Noah, and Guns Loaded, I think, will get overlooked. So I definitely don't hate that at all. Definitely value late double there if you can get it home. So good luck to you as well. I've already mentioned my best bets, kind of, so I'll talk about them very briefly. Lanthorus in the first race I mentioned was my irresponsible wager of the week. If that horse is anywhere in that 2-1, 3-1 range, I don't know if you will get it, but that is the irresponsible wager of the week for myself. Charlie's Ferocious. I don't even need to ask him what his irresponsible wager of the week is. Can already guess it right away. Race number 10, though, Singling Tappan Street. Just really think he's got as much to give as possible. And if I don't think that Guns Loaded can get 2 turns, that he's going to go to the lead out of the gate, there's only one horse that's going to sit a very logical position, exactly what he sat last time out and ran a very good race, and that is number 3, Tap and Streak, going to single him there. And I mentioned that I think it could really run Brad Cox 1-2, whether Stunner stays in front or Eclatant takes her down the lane. Going to go with the 2 Brad Coxes in race number 11 to end off the day, a double Tap and Street into Eclatant and Stunner. Guys, that'll end our show tonight. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Want to shout out real quick a new viewer, DM. Thanks so much, DM, for watching. Greatly appreciate it, and thank you for the kind words. You said good stuff, guys. And shout out to Razor Sharp Picks. What's up, fellas? Thanks so much, Razor, for joining. Greatly appreciate it. And of course, Howard is here, says, what's up, ball? Very strong opinions on the tip sheet at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. And again, I covered it at the top of the show, but if you guys weren't watching, we are still over $3.50 ROIs in 2025 for the HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks. Please subscribe, patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. You have until, I believe it's Thursday night, to get your power picks for Saturday. Still want to give a little bit of time to get on the email list. You'll get them emailed to you every Saturday if you do sign up. Again, we are on fire to start off 2025, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be involved for only $5 a weekend when you get 3 tracks full of pick 5 grids, spot plays, everything you need to be successful on any given Saturday. The HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks has you covered. Guys, thank you guys all for so much for watching another edition of Bettin N Boozin, this one being episode 117, covering Holy Bull Stakes Day with my fantastic co-hosts, Noah Maher and Charlie Freeman. And for those co-hosts and myself, Kyle Roscoe, this has been your episode 117 of Bettin N Boozin. Until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.